This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 177, recorded on July 31st, 2014. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in Bellevue, Nebraska, and we post the show with world-class show notes each week out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you can contact the show. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. You can find me on Twitter @jcollison, or now call those questions in. Still waiting for somebody to crank call me, 402-478-8450. Good crank call, make it on the show. We'd love to hear that from you. Give me a call if you got questions. We'd love to play those as well. Call them in and we'll get them right on the show. And now Home Gadget Geeks is a part of the Geeks Network. You know, if you're a regular listener to this, you know I've been railing on Dave about the homepage at the Geeks Network. He gave me some admin access and I fixed it this weekend, so the links actually work. Thanks, Dave. Out at thegeeksnetwork.com. Join us in chat, watch or listen live on YouTube, Spreaker, or Mixler, and find all the navigation for all the stuff that we do, including the RSS feeds, out at theaverageguy.tv. All right, well, we've got a great show for you tonight. I have Derek Labian he's the CEO from MediaFire here, and we've been talking about this for the last couple weeks. Derek, thanks for taking a few minutes to join me tonight.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks.
So we want to get to know you a little bit, and just take us back. I have your bio, and like I said, you're the CEO of MediaFire. You founded the company back in 2006, but walk me through a little bit about your background. You've done a lot of different startups. Kind of talk to me about that.
Yes, I'm an engineer by trade. So pre-startups, I worked at Compaq prior to being HP in the communications group, and just a general technology enthusiast myself. I worked on a lot of communications technologies in the late 90s, like cable modems before they were publicly out, GDSL, DSL, ADSL, all those types of early technologies. And as an enthusiast, I just started spending some spare time on it, and before I knew it, I was making more money on these side projects than at my job. And Compaq hit some tough times there, and HP gobbled them up, and there was a lot of layoffs there, and I just continued down this pipe. So one thing led to another, and a couple startups later, here we are.
Now, tell me a little bit about the advent of MediaFire. I mean, so you work for corporate America, and then you're thinking about how did you get started? Why cloud storage? What got you into that space?
Well, I wasn't working in corporate America at the time. I mean, I had done another startup before that, FileFront, which was gaming related, and you probably either remember FileFront or GameSpy or FilePlanet, which was part of that. All got gobbled up by and consolidated by IGN. But that was basically a gaming distribution platform where game demos would come out, the publishers needed to distribute them. And platforms like this helped people download patches, demos, modifications, all these types of things. So we did that till about 2005, and Ziff Davis acquired us, and we became part of the 1UP network, which no longer exists either. It's part of IGN. And when we were done with that, we looked around at the marketplace and what the needs were, and what products were out there, and saw an opportunity for a quick sharing product. So originally MediaFire was a quick sharing platform, and the knowledge that we had amassed previously doing large volume distribution with a gaming product directly applied here, and it was an opportunity for us to take all that knowledge and understanding and apply it to something new and innovative, and so that's how we got started in 2006.
So in 2006, when you're first getting going, what your target, kind of the target audience, or what would have been your perfect customer when you were first getting going?
Well, in 2006, it was a free product, completely free, and it was basically a web-only service. You'd basically just upload a file into the cloud, it would go into your account, and then you could share that file out. So it was a logistics service for moving data around outside of email because email was so restrictive at this time. A very similar trajectory from Box in the early days. I mean, Aaron tells a very similar story.
Yeah, and so really, I mean, the idea is now, of course, as email has gotten more, I mean, I think email's gotten a little bit better from that, and of course, the cloud storage space has matured in a lot of ways. I mean, as I've been keeping track of, I have this cloud storage guide, and over the last couple of years, I've been kind of updating the companies that are in there. You know, we've seen an increase in the free storage. We've seen an increase in file size restrictions as well going forward. What do you see in your customers? Well, let me back up before that. You've made some changes recently to the service. When I was, you know, a year ago when I had updated you guys, still some file size restrictions. Certainly not as generous storage space. Everybody's kind of moved that way, but what are you guys seeing in the cloud space that really kind of made you change to what you are today?
Well, I mean, the changes that you're really speaking about, and the maturity of the cloud storage space, I think, go back to the continuing evolution of the space in general. You know, from a web-only solution to desktop uploaders to file syncing and sharing, and so it's going to continue on like that. And you know, as the market has evolved, you know, MediaFire has evolved with it. But you know, we still, of course, have users using us for legacy purposes for things they might have used us, you know, 7 years ago for. And so, really, the changes that we made over the last year are designed to bring us in line with a storage-based model. And a storage-based model doesn't have file size restrictions, etc.
Yeah, and so as you look at, as we look at Dropbox, as we look at Box and Copy and some of, you know, there's a lot of players out there at this point. What's your biggest concern? I mean, what keeps you awake at night as you think about the competition that's out there? And you know, how are you working with a lot of players that are in the space right now?
Well, I mean, in general, there's a pretty big rush right now to enterprise and to capture the business market. You know, Box is exclusively focusing on that, but ultimately Dropbox is eager to get into that market, and you know, Google and Microsoft are trying to use bottom-up adoption tactics to, you know, infiltrate those markets as well. And we're going in the opposite direction. I mean, we're focusing more on the consumer instead of less on the consumer. And the things that we've been working on and the products that are coming out are designed to move the experience for the consumer 2 steps forward. So I don't know that those keep me up at night because, you know, there's going to be an increased focus on consumer instead of a decreased focus, whereas everyone else is going the other direction.
Yeah, so everybody's kind of flooding to the enterprise because they're seeing that as the silver bullet, and you guys are coming back, which we appreciate. From you know, we're a consumer show in a lot of ways. We talk about consumer offerings, and yeah, a lot of the cloud storage. I mentioned to you in the pre-show, a lot of the guys and gals that listen to this program, they're kind of home storage. You know, we all kind of grew out of that home server show that's been on for such a long time, and that's kind of the community. What do you say? So when you've got a consumer, and you know, really what's taken up so much space today is when people are ripping their videos, right? I mean, that's the big deal. Or when we talk about guys who are maybe a little suspicious of having their data in the cloud, what's your sales point? I mean, what do you say to them? What's the corporate speak to get them to make their way into the cloud?
I mean, I guess it depends on the individual consumer and what their goal is. Some people want to get their data into the cloud for backup purposes. Some people want to get their data in the cloud for convenience. And so, you know, the different angles have different value propositions. From a standpoint of MediaFire, I guess as it pertains to local storage and people storing stuff locally, we're more focused on getting your media into the cloud and then helping you interact with it, and not so much moving forward on the backup aspects. So, you know, we see the value proposition in that ease of use and hands-off approach to accessing and working with your media.
So whether that means if it's my music, I can get to it easy and play it from anywhere. If it's videos, I can watch it. Yesterday, as I was prepping for the show, I wanted to kind of see how things had changed from a media standpoint. So I uploaded both some MP3s and some MP4s in there, and I noticed super easy to get the data in, and then I would come back to it and be able to just play it right there on the web. I played it right off my Android phone. I came on the MediaFire app and played that. Looked great, by the way. I was like, this is some great stuff. Are you doing doing any kind of caching or CDN trickery to deliver that content out to me faster on devices?
Well, we've been investing a lot of time and energy in our platform. So, we actually transcode data, audio and video real time on the fly now. So, most of the services out there you're going to see, they're going to upload a video and then they're going to encode 20 copies of it, and then when you request it, it's a file. But we actually transcode at the time of request. So when you're on your device there, the request comes in and we transcode it for the optimal rate for that device based on speed of the device, size, etc., and then it streams down to your device directly. So that gives it the appearance of being faster and also instantly accessible.
Yeah, it looked good. I mean, I was very surprised how good it looked on my phone, transcoding right there. I was coming across Wi-Fi. I guess it probably looked as good on 4G coming across, but that part looked really good. It streamed well off the PC, so it was like, oh, that's pretty good. I'm going to ask you a question about that from a podcasting standpoint a little bit later, but let's talk about your plans real quick, because you really simplified things, at least in my opinion. You simplified it. Your free plan comes in is it still a 10 gig starter for you guys?
Yeah, with free bonuses up to 50 gigs.
And bonuses would be me sharing the link out and so.
Yeah, well, I mean, you install our desktop app and you get, I think, 5 gigs, and you install our mobile app and you get 5 gigs. So it's pretty easy to increase that.
Pretty easy to bring it up. I think I'm at 55 at this point. I somehow got there fairly easy, so it wasn't terribly difficult. You do mention though ad-supported downloads, and I did not see, as I was messing around with it the last night, I didn't see any ads. Where do those ads come in?
We hide them. We hide them away. No, they're vestigial. They're really related to that model back in 2006 when we were ad-supported. So it really only comes into place when you're doing public distribution. When you take a file and you want to share it with 10,000 people, that's ad-supported. Whereas on maybe a service like Dropbox, that would just be blocked after 20 gigs of transfer or something to that effect. So we don't block it, we allow it, but we support those transfers with ads.
And what's the form? What's the form of the ad? How does that? Is it visual? Does it come out in the audio or the video? How does that come out?
No. There's no ads in any of the audio or video. The only time there's an ad is the actual file download. So when you're streaming audio or video, there's no ads. When you share directly, there's no ads. Okay. There is a single box ad, I think, on audio or video pages or something like that if you're viewing it through our web interface only.
And if I set up a RSS feed to it, if I created a folder and pointed a feed over to it, I assume no ads in that. Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk to you more about that here later. But let's talk about the, at least at this point, on the Pro plan, which I think is for most of our listeners, this would be the one they're most interested in. And by far the most generous and the cheapest as of this recording here, on July 31st, 2014. A terabyte for $25, right? Basically, that's the plan, straight up.
Yeah, a year or $250 a month.
Okay. Say that again. Oh,
or $250 a month.
Plan. Yeah, or $250 a month. But that seems at the monthly plan. I mean, at $25, that's kind of crazy cheap. I mean, you're the first ones we've seen to really. I know there's a race to the bottom, right? Microsoft and Google and Amazon are making this race to the bottom, but so far you guys are the cheapest. I mean, that's
yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to get cheaper too. I mean, our goal is $10 a year for a terabyte, and that's what we're shooting for in the not too distant future with our new new types of products that'll be coming out later this year. So.
Okay. Also, there's some more announcements on things that are coming out.
Well, I mean, we have an iOS and Android app coming out that are going to do camera import is the big update, but they're
Oh,
also
good.
native apps, and so they're faster, they're smoother, but the camera import's the big deal there. And then we have a new platform that's coming out, or I should say a new front end for our platform that's coming out that is really geared towards that consumer vision we see in the future.
So, can you tell me a little bit about, and don't give away any secrets, but
Mhm.
what are you using on the back end that's making that so cheap? I mean, people are worried about, I'll be honest, when we talk about inexpensive programs or free programs.
Mhm.
We've watched plenty. We've saw Ubuntu One go away. We've seen
Mhm.
Media, shoot, I should know that. Sorry, another cloud service go out of service because they were doing the free or a freemium model. How are you doing that so cheap and making the business model work?
Well, we were founded in 2006. That's before really cloud availability, before AWS, et cetera. So we own and operate our own infrastructure and network. So we control everything and we get the economies of scale effectively. We pass that along.
So it's all on your own data centers. It's not going
Mm-hmm.
off to Amazon cold storage
Mm-mm.
somewhere. It's
No,
staying right there in the area. Is everything coming back to the
yeah.
Houston area? Is
Yeah,
latency an issue?
well, Texas in general, Dallas and Houston are both pretty centrally located. So, it's good for U.S. consumers. It might not be great for the guy in China, but
Well, okay, but you're focusing on the U.S. probably
exactly, yes.
at this point, and so $24 a year gives you a terabyte of space, which I'm drooling over at the moment, and for some, in some ways, 20 gig. So there's still a 20 gig per file. Is that like an upload restriction?
I mean, we got to set a limit somewhere, right? So, I mean,
Well, I was just wondering.
it's an arbitrary limit. We get
Okay,
customers saying that they need to upload files larger than 20 gigs, then we can adjust it. But
okay,
it's an arbitrary number.
yeah, it's really just to say you've got one. It's almost like you know, this with this 1 terabyte limit, really most customers that's unlimited, right? I
Hmm.
mean, there isn't a lot of people who have a terabyte of data, right, for the most part.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that in saying it's a terabyte, you're almost why not say unlimited? I mean, why not just blow that thing open and make it unlimited?
We actually, I mean, had an unlimited plan many years ago. I don't think people really understand the concept of unlimited per se. It's hard for you to understand unlimited. It's the difference between saying, "Hey, this is free," and "This is 5 cents," right? 5 cents almost sounds better because it's tangible. You can relate to it. It's a nickel. Same thing with a terabyte of storage. You can understand a terabyte of storage, but there are people that will use up the terabyte of storage. So we do have to have a limit somewhere, and our margins kind of determine where those limits are right now.
Yeah, do you track your we talk with Crash Plan. That's one of the, Code 42, one of those guys. We do a lot of the guys use Crash Plan for backup. And they can tell me every time I interview them, they always tell me, their biggest client has 60 gig or whatever
Mm-hmm.
backup, and they do say unlimited. You guys
Mm-hmm.
track that? Do you have a huge customer that is filling the thing up?
We have had lots of customers be well over a terabyte, yes. Thousands and thousands over, you get them into 10, 20 terabytes. I mean, people get big accounts.
Would it make sense for me to so a lot of the guys
Mm-hmm.
they want to watch their movies, this is they
Mm-hmm.
rip their movies down and want to watch them. Would it with as good as the streaming is for you guys, would it make
Mm-hmm.
sense for me to rip those in the highest possible video format that I can get, resolution that I can get, and watch them streaming from you? Is it Netflix quality at the end of the day, or is
Yeah, I mean,
that
we're going to
still
stream
not
it
there
back.
yet?
No, we're going to stream it back in high quality. Like I said, we've invested a lot of time in our platform for audio and video encoding. So, we write our own hardware codecs that actually transcode the video in the CPU right when you request it, and that does 1080p video at 30 frames a second. So the quality is good. The technology on the front end hasn't actually caught up as well. So, there's a lot of fragmentation between Android and iOS and what each browser will support. Microsoft is using H.264, and Firefox or Mozilla is pushing their codecs, and so we have actually a new front end that we've been working on that will actually unify across the board video. So we'll be able to use a single codec on the back end to play video on all browsers and all the major devices, iOS, Android, Apple, etc. So the experience is going to get better. Until then, there's going to be some fragmentation.
But in reality, I mean, what is that the experience? Most.
Well, the fragmentation is going to affect your band. I mean, You're asking about quality, so
yeah.
On certain platforms, you're going to get a direct stream. So if you're going to watch on a platform we can't support, you're going to get full data stream, and that might be too much quality for a certain device. So that's where the fragmentation affects you.
Okay. It's just one of those things. I know they'll ask. We talk when we talk about media streaming all the time. One of the reasons a lot of folks in this community says, no, I need to build these big gigantic servers at home is because I want really good quality, for these videos that I'm ripping. And so it sounds like we're getting closer to the point where storing it in the cloud is going to make more and more sense because you'll get that quality back coming in. Well, so it'll be interesting to keep up with you on that, and I'm super interested because it does make it easy for me to keep that stuff up there. I mean, with a 1 terabyte limit at $25 a year, I can throw that stuff up there and store it as well, and then maybe stream it when I want to. And it gives me the flexibility to stream it at home or stream it on my phone when I'm on the road or what. And that sounds like that experience is just going to keep getting better. Let's talk a little bit about your business plans because those are kind of also as large. I mean, those have a lot of space as well. $25 a month. Will get you up to 100 terabytes, and this was the interesting thing to me. You can add additional 100 people to that account.
Yes, that's correct.
And so that's
basically
100
shared storage.
Yeah, they're all sharing the 100 terabytes.
Yes, exactly.
That are in there, and so a pretty good. And I think everything else then is kind of the same along those lines, right? It's just a shared. Do you have an administrator for those accounts? I mean, is it treated kind of like a business?
The master account is the administrator. There's some other features there. We log everything verbosely. There's a detailed security log, so there's some additional controls and things like that. But our primary focus is on the consumer. And it's interesting that you mentioned storing video in the cloud and having a better interface for accessing that, because that's one of the primary things that we're working towards addressing over the next 6 months, providing better front ends, different front ends from the existing MediaFire front ends that address accessibility of video and photos and audio in a streaming format that isn't file system based, and that also provides interfaces for things like Chromecast and AirPlay. So for somebody like you storing a movie in the cloud, being able to access that without having to go through a file system per se, and then being able to display it back to your own television through any number of interfaces is where we're headed.
Good. No, good. And let me slip into a little bit of podcasting, because I think this is, as I was looking at what you guys are doing, we're talking about ripping movies, and that's easy. There's lots of easier ways to get your movies than ripping them and uploading them, to file storage. This idea of content creation, and of course that's the business we're in when it comes to podcasting and such, and we're creating, as podcasters, we're creating larger and larger and larger artifacts for both our audio and for our video. So like right now, we're recording this on YouTube, and it'll make an MP4 for me, and I'm always struggling to kind of find the right way. Sure, I can push it to YouTube, and then I have some YouTube restrictions. And so when I saw your offering, all of a sudden I got really interested for podcasters to say, do you guys want to be, or is would it be within the terms of service for you to be my media host for podcasting? Could I put audio and video files? You create the direct link to them, which is perfect, because that then I can embed them in my RSS feed and we'll get them. Is unlimited really mean unlimited? If I have 1,000 people hit that on a Saturday afternoon to download my MP3 and to watch the MP4, you guys okay with that?
It's not unlimited on the bandwidth side. There is a limit, and when you're pro, we track that on a per transfer basis, and you can actually see kind of your bandwidth and how it's changing. So on a pro plan, a 1 terabyte account gives you 10 terabytes of bandwidth, and on a business plan it goes up from there. So It's takes quite a bit of traffic to go through that much bandwidth.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So 10 terabytes per month to do that.
Correct.
So once I reach that, I get throttled, or I just get shut off.
Now, once you reach that, well, I mean, if you're talking about using our audio player, is that what you're saying?
I'm talking about using your, direct linking
Our
to
audio
the.
interface?
Yeah, no, direct linking the MP3. So I get my file name .mp3. I embed that in my RSS feed, and then people with podcatchers, when they are retrieving the feed, that will automatically download to their device.
If you listen to the MP3 on the MediaFire website through our built-in player, it's unlimited.
Okay.
If you download it, then it's treated like a file. And when you get a pro account, that becomes a direct link. So when you copy that link for your file, completely bypasses the MediaFire website.
Yep.
And for that, you'll get X number of terabytes. And then that bandwidth rolls over month to month.
And you said that's the 10 terabyte. That's the 10 terabyte limit on the Pro plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 10x bandwidth increase over.
Yeah, no, super generous. As I'm thinking through, one of the things I've personally been thinking through is I'd love to find a great host provider for my video files. I have not created a video RSS feed. In the years we've been podcasting, I've kept the RSS exclusively to audio. And those files are smaller. They're 100 and, what would they be? Yeah, they're under 100 meg. And, I get 1,000 of those going on, but I got to start doing the math as I was looking at the offerings that you were doing, and that you gave a direct link, and that it seemed like you wouldn't, I did this with Google Docs. They give a direct file link too in there. And I tested it. I put it as the RSS feed one time, and I set the feed live, and within 5 minutes, it was locked. Right? I mean, they not only locked the file, they disabled from me getting to it. Again, it wouldn't give me access to it. You guys see that a little bit differently.
Yeah, you see the same kind of problems, like I said, with Dropbox. I mean, Dropbox has hard limits on the amount of transfer, So, I mean, our roots are in sharing originally, and, that's kind of carried forward, and it's continued to be part of our product line. A lot of people use us for that type of distribution. So, again, controlling our own infrastructure and network, we can do a lot more on the transfer side than maybe somebody like Dropbox, who's paying for S3 transfers, who's paying Amazon's margins, et cetera, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, I'll have to sit down with a calculator and kind of figure out. I mean, I assume if I bought the Pro plan that I would get a dashboard that would kind of tell me how much bandwidth I've used for the month in sharing.
Yeah, basically it tells you how much bandwidth is available, and that'll basically drop over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The video files are a lot larger, of course. Mine would range in the just under a gig for that, and so it would I'd get quite a few of those downloaded before I might reach the limit. That's not the most popular way to consume a podcast is not video. Most people don't do that just because of the restrictions on their end.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of MP3 transfers, I promise.
Yeah, it's a lot of MP3. Not as many video, which is what I was kind of hoping to use you guys for.
Is it a 1-minute video or a 30-minute video?
No, they're an hour worth. It's this show, so it's an hour worth, and I can compress those down. I've used I can get them down to 250 or 500 meg from that standpoint. Now, that being said, like I said, there's not as many customers. My listeners. Not that many people. Most of them, they don't want to download. Like in the UK, that would be insane, right? Those guys have caps. We've got caps here in the US. There's caps in Australia. So a lot of the US and a lot of the English-speaking listeners don't really, they're not going to download that to their phone because they've got 5 gig caps themselves, and one of those files would take up a tenth of that. So we wouldn't see a lot of it. I might try it, but that'd be okay. I mean, right? If I put some MP4s out there and I put them in a feed, and it would be a direct download, and I could use it in that format, and that would work. Okay. Well, I'm going to give it a try. I'll probably be a pro customer this weekend, and I'll give it a shot. One of the guys, Phony Other Jim. Then we have another Jim, and now we have a Phony Other Jim in chat. He says, "What about streaming to Roku or well, you talked about Chromecast? Roku, Chromecast, and TiVo.
Mm-hmm.
Are those platforms that are supported?
Yeah, we don't support them today, but this goes back to our bigger vision about how do we take the consumer cloud and march that, 3 steps into the future. Where is it going to be, a couple of years down the road? And I think we see that a lot differently than some of the other players in the space like Dropbox, et cetera. So while everybody else is focusing on how do I get my documents and how do I get enterprises and how do I extend my file system into the cloud, we're really looking a little bit more introspectively and saying, hey, what does the consumer really need with their media? And we think that, for the photos and the video that you're generating on your phone, which we're all generating tons of it now, and your personal audio or personal video collections, we don't really think that the current interfaces make a lot of sense. We don't think the file system itself makes a lot of sense. I mean, it made a lot of sense 20 years ago with MS-DOS, but today we really believe in media-specific interfaces. The way you consume your photos is different than the way you consume your audio and video, and the products that we have coming out later this year really take the platform that we have, the great transcoding technologies and the great storage prices, and give you a different front end, a front end that's really geared towards consumer media. And then on top of that, it provides a new interface for accessing those that are contextual and social and meta-based, so that you can consume the media as actual media instead of files, without worrying about if it's a JPEG or PNG, without worrying about if it's H.264 or some other codec, etc. And then have that really in the cloud where it's accessible on all platforms and be able to connect it out.
With your app, I'm just thinking, just brainstorming through some podcasting stuff again, because that's what we do a lot of, and I also do a podcasting show where we talk about podcasting. Through the MediaFire app, if I shared that link out to individuals, or they because really your roots are in sharing. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about sharing that, talk a little bit more. If I want to give somebody access to that, is there a way for me to give open access to a folder that someone could subscribe to, and when I would drop that that audio or video file in the folder, they would automatically have access to it?
Yeah, I mean, you can share a folder publicly, and you can also have people subscribe to folders. That's what our following system does, and basically allows you to put a link out there for a folder that says podcast and people to follow it, and then when you put a new file into the folder, they're going to get a notification that says, Jim added a new podcast to this.
Yeah, so that's almost like a podcatcher in the sense that that then they would log into the MediaFire app. It would give them a notification that, hey, you have something new in that folder, and then they could play it right from there.
Sure, but it's still file system based. Wouldn't it be better if they subscribed to you, and then when you added a podcast to your MediaFire library, they just got a native interface for it?
Yeah,
that's where we're headed.
Good. Well, that's exciting in the sense that from a podcasting standpoint, that makes a lot of sense to us, right? And I would love to have, RSS is old, right? And like you're saying, it's file system based. I'd love to have some options to, like you said, they subscribe to me or they subscribe to the podcast, and they have a way downloading that app. They subscribe to it, make it simple, and every time I do something new, they just view it right there on, because that's, I think, where most people are listening now, is off their phone for the most part. They're getting it that way, or I guess they're getting it. No, I'd have to say phone. I mean, I guess they're still getting it maybe in iPods. I can't imagine there's too many more iPod people out there that are listening to podcasts anyway. So good. So I can expect, and I'm not going to hold you any timelines, but this is active stuff that you guys are working on yet this year or early next. That may be some things I want to watch for.
Yeah, you can definitely expect to release this year. I mean, we've been working on it in parallel with our new iOS and Android products, et cetera. So
yeah. So the current Android product I have is going to get upgraded with some of this functionality that's coming.
Well, no, it's going to be upgraded. Think about it more as like 2 parallel paths. You have your data stored, and if it's stored on your computer, you could access it through Explorer in your case, right?
Yeah.
Or you could access it through the command prompt. These are different interfaces for the same data set, and so we're really looking at MediaFire more holistically as a platform where your data is stored, and then we're giving you multiple ways to access it. So the MediaFire iOS and Android updates that are coming really improve upon the existing apps and also offer you camera import, automatic import, and things like that. In parallel, there's a new front end that's coming that really focuses on that experience of consuming and surfacing your media contextually and in media-specific interfaces. So an interface that's designed for photos, an interface that's designed for video, so on and so forth, instead of a list of files. So
Okay.
that's kind of what's coming this year.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds like a podcast app. I mean, that's not what you're intending, but as a podcaster, I would, and I'm going to use, I believe in getting my media every possible place I can, as far as the various services. We're on Podomatic, and we're on Audioboo, and we're on Spreaker, and we're on Mixler, and all these different, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all these different media outlets. But I'm going to add MediaFire to that. I'm going to begin to look at it now that I know this is coming. Go ahead.
When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, Jim.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that. That's what I'm saying. But it is an interesting, as a podcaster, I want to get everywhere people listen. And I also believe in the podcasting space, it's still too hard for the average person to consume these podcasts. I mean, podcasting is growing, but it's still really a geek. It's probably 90% geeks listening to podcasts. It's getting more. It's getting, there's more and more people listening to it, but a lot of them fail when they try to get subscribed. And so I want to create easier and easier ways for them to.
I think that goes back to the basic premise that people don't care about. I mean, you keep saying I send it out as an MP3 or whatever. People don't care if it's really an MP3 or they don't care. They don't care how it's delivered. They just want easy access to it and just to work. So you're going to see more of that in the consumer cloud, and hopefully we'll lead the charge.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree with you. Today I'm limited by the systems that I have access to.
Yeah.
And so I've got to do some trickery, right? I mean, thank goodness. Companies like Stitcher and iHeartRadio are coming along and consuming some of that content and making it a little bit easier to get to. But I still I'm still very interested in easier and easier models to try and to get that done from a podcasting standpoint. Anything else, Derek? I've kept you almost up to the limit here, but anything else coming up that you want to highlight from a MediaFire standpoint before I let you go?
No, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things coming, so I mean, I could probably talk about it all night, but what we'll do is we'll get your audience early access, and you can check it out and see how it works for you, and see what you think.
Yeah, very good. Well, I'll certainly be, and when you say early access, I'm assuming it's just meaning communicating through us when stuff is going on?
No, I mean, we're going to be doing a beta program, and we're looking for early adopters, people who are technology enthusiasts, to participate in that. Help guide feedback of these new kind of products and concepts that are, very forward-looking, and also help us fix bugs and things like that. So,
sure.
It's a great audience for that, I'm sure.
You can sign me up. We've got a lot of guys that have a lot of tech experience. I seem to. You birds of a feather flock together, so I got all these middle-aged guys who've been around tech most of their life and like to complain about it a little bit. They like to maybe troubleshoot your interface and give you some honest feedback. So we'll stay in touch, and as you guys have, because I'm going to jump on it. This has got some real promise, I think, from a podcasting standpoint, and I'm going to let I do a podcasting show on Saturday mornings. We'll start talking to them about. These are all podcasters that listen to the show. And I'll certainly bring this up and be able to talk about what you guys are doing, because I think it sounds pretty exciting from that standpoint. So I appreciate you keeping in touch with us from that standpoint. Well, thanks for taking a few minutes to be on, and maybe we can catch up with you when you come back on again in 6 months or whenever you have some major releases, and maybe talk about some of the stuff you have going on. That'd be great.
All right, great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for being on. I'm going to stay on a little bit. I've got some community stuff to go through with these guys, but it's dark outside, and you should be going home to spend some time with your kids. So I appreciate it, Derek. Thanks a ton.
Thanks, Jim.
You bet. Have a great evening. All right. Well, that sounds very promising. I don't ever do like a solo podcast. This is going to be kind of weird, but Derek Labian from MediaFire was on, and it sounds, man, I'm very interested at this from a podcasting standpoint. And I hope you guys are too. If you're listening in the car or you're listening live, I hope that's kind of been intriguing. A very interesting way at looking at cloud storage as opposed to file structure. Heard him say this a bunch of times, file structure and format and downloading. It's more about, and it's really true. I mean, think about the audio and the video and the pictures. You don't need to download those, right? One of the as we've gone out to the cloud storage guide, one of the things we've looked at is this idea of these own cloud, right? The private cloud servers where you're not moving data around, you're not syncing it. You don't have multiple copies all in one place, but that you really have, you're consuming it where it's at. And as we looked at some of those products in the cloud storage guide, it just became evident to me that we don't need to necessarily start moving all this data around. And hey, Randy, thanks for joining us out there as well. Just saw you in chat. I've been listening to your podcasts the last couple of weeks and have really enjoyed them. So thanks for coming out tonight to listen to mine. And so, yeah, I'm super interested in this and in this progression with them. He sounds like a very forward-thinking guy when it comes to media, and I'm very interested in what they do. So I'm going to stay up on this over the next months as we head into the fall, and certainly I'd love to, if they're going to do everything they say they're going to do, I would love to make this a work from a subscription standpoint. So could I put my files out there and say, download the MediaFire app and subscribe to me there, or create a link that automatically helps them subscribe there on MediaFire? Would that make it easier for the average guy, so to speak, to consume podcasts? That's one of the things that keeps me awake at night, trying to figure out how to make it easier for my mom, how to make it easier for my sister who would never listen to podcasts, give them an easy way to get subscribed. It's really still too hard, and it's not easy for them to get it done. So yeah, so when Randy said it sounds like inexpensive MP3 storage or MP4 storage, to be honest with you. You could put a lot of MP4 out there for folks who don't really care about detailed stats. Mike Howard and I were talking about, Mike and I were talking about detailed stats before. Yeah, you wouldn't, in this case, you wouldn't get those stats if they're streaming them off there. You would get them if they download it through the RSS feed through like a Blueberry app in WordPress or something like that, but you definitely would kind of lose those stats. Randy, you're a podcaster, and I know Mike Howard's out there too. He's a podcaster. I'm caring less and less about my stats. It's kind of nice. I go in there just to kind of get a feel for who's listening, but more and more as I do this longer, more interested in the quality of the conversation, knowing who you are or knowing Mike Howard and having the conversations or the conversations that I have with you guys every single week as we come out here live. I'm much more interested in that discussion than I am about saying how many downloads that I have or knowing how many downloads that I have. I know that that's an ego thing for some of us. And it's nice for me. I look at it when I look at my stats and I see how many we have downloading, and it's a good feeling. But something we'll be taking over to Ask the Podcast Coach on Saturday mornings, and so we'll be talking a little bit about this and getting Dave's. I'll be getting Dave's opinion on it as we go, and so we'll go. Lofted asked a question: did we ask whether his software supported OGG or Vorbis? I didn't ask that. You could go out there and check that out. MediaFire.com. I think they probably support just about anything that's out there. He's very interested in consuming. And so let me go through just real quick. Let me go through some housekeeping here before we let you go for the night. And I guys appreciate you keeping me up. Yeah, so Randy says I've never cared about stats, much more interested in fast servers. One of the interesting things, Randy, is he talked about, they've built their server infrastructure from the ground up. They're not using S3. They're not using some other kind of storage that's there. So it's one of those deals where, and they're very interested in the audio and the video speed, right? Getting it to you, streaming it to you, kind of changing your viewing experience. So it's one of those things, I guess you'd have to worry about stats, and I don't want to go too much inside baseball on podcasting. We'll do plenty of that on Saturday mornings over to Ask the Podcast Coach. But, you do, if you're going to do advertising, you do need to get some of those stats because those advertisers look for that kind of stuff. And, yeah. I don't know. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that more. It's kind of interesting. For $25 a year, I'm going to try it. I'll probably buy the pro plan. You guys know I don't really ask for. I try not to ask for that free stuff, and I just like to pay for it. At $25, it's certainly worth it to give it a try. So I'll be giving MediaFire a try this weekend, getting signed up and moving some video files. My real intent is for them to become my video provider for this, not just YouTube. We're going to still stay on YouTube. Try to get my stuff everywhere, but to also be a video provider as well. Yeah, by the way, so Rennie asked about Randy's show. Listen, I said this a couple weeks ago. If you haven't listened to Randy's show, I think if you listen to this show, Randy Cantrell, and he's over at Leaning Toward Wisdom, no S, Leaning Toward Wisdom. If you haven't listened to that podcast yet, Randy, thanks for doing that. That has become quickly one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to. It's a soul podcast is what I call it. Randy spends some time just talking about life and the things that cross his path, and he does a great job of doing it. He's got a great radio voice, and I look forward. You can't make enough of those, Randy, to be honest with you. That's kind of the one non-tech podcast that I listen to every single week. Or when he puts it out, he doesn't put a podcast out every week, but it is one of those podcasts that I really look forward to, and it has become over the last. I think I've listened to the last 4 or 5 episodes, and I just really look forward to them. So, Leaning Toward Wisdom out there, just I think that's just leaningtowardwisdom.com, and look it up in any podcatcher. Give it a try. I think you'll like it. I think if you're in my demographic, you will like it. And Randy, that's been great for me. All right, let's cover some just some housekeeping stuff as we go. Randy, we all have a face for radio. So let's talk a little bit what's going on in the community. One is we have a brand new LastPass Enterprise trial. The guys from LastPass, we've had that on a couple times. They reached out to me and they said, hey, we'd like to give you an affiliate link for LastPass Enterprise. And so if you're interested in the Enterprise trial, just head out to theaverageguy.tv/LastPass trial. And that will get you in at least to their trial software if you want to give it a try. If the Enterprise buys it, theaverageguy.tv makes a little bit of commission on that stuff. Of course, we turn that back into scholarship money for those folks that need tech stuff. You know how that works, the Average Guy Tech Scholarship Fund. And then again, I want to thank you for purchasing through Amazon, just theaverageguy.tv/Amazon. Those funds come back around into giveaways, and we have John out there right now with one of those Wi-Fi extenders, and he's been reviewing it. Dropped a little bit in the Facebook group, talking about it, some pros and cons, and he will make a post for us. And that's what the Average Guy Scholarship Fund is about. If you want to try something out, usually around $100, let me know. I'll buy it for you. I'll ship it to you. You review it, do a post, or come on the show and talk about it. That's it. You get to keep it. I just don't like begging vendors for junk. And so, but we want to do what you guys indeed want to try out. So let me know. Those are the 2 ways to do that right now. And LastPass will be back on here later in the fall, and we'll have them back in talking about stuff. They're good friends of the show. I want to remind you of the meetup that's coming up in September. We'd love to have you come out to Indianapolis. About 25 spots or so left for that. It's just $20 to show up, and hopefully it's probably a little more if you got to travel. I'll be coming from Omaha to Indianapolis, but I have a link in the show notes. It's been out there for a while. Get out there and get signed up. Dave is on vacation, but when he's back, we are going to make a full head run for the meetup. So it's coming up September 20th. It's coming up fast, guys. I mean, it's already August. So we have about a month and a half to go to the meetup. If you have not decided to be there yet, decide quickly, because we need to know from a space standpoint. And we'll have a great lunch and a good time. And so we're looking forward to having you out there. Again, that link is out in the show notes as well, and I'd love to have you get registered. One final reminder before we go that I join Dave Jackson every Saturday morning. If you are a podcaster and you want to join us on Saturday mornings, 8:30 Central, 9 Eastern. No, that's not true. 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern AM, that is, on Saturday mornings. We have a great time. I really enjoy hanging out with Dave Jackson on Saturday mornings. We talk podcasting. So if you want to join us out there for that one, we'd love to have you come out. AskThePodcastCoach.com is the way to do that. And we have a good time when we get together. And Randy says in chat, off topic, Jim, but you mentioned Crash Plan being used by your guys. Is there a particular reason that you guys like those over the other? Yeah, so I had mentioned a lot of the folks in our home server community use Crash Plan. We talk about it a lot. Well, Randy, 1, it works great. 2, it's $60 a year. 3, it's unlimited. And 4, in a lot of cases, it just works. There are some edge cases where if you have a large memory set or some other things, the software struggles a little bit, but that's just like anything else. It's fairly on the edge. But we've liked Crash Plan, and those are some good guys that are out there. One of the Nathaniel and Lee used to work for them, and that's just been a good recommendation. It's worked for just about everybody. It backs everything up, and it works pretty well. Windows and Mac and a bunch of other environments, Lopta, you'll always come up with one that I have no idea what that is, but it works on just about everything. So Randy, that's why our Crash Plan recommendation. If you're backing up your stuff, man, we just really like Crash Plan. We've been using that. A lot of the folks here use it and recommend it. So it's no media file restrictions. No, you can back just about anything. I would go out to crashplan.com and read all the info on there. Mike Howard is uploading actually about 4 terabytes to it right now. He had it once before, and the set got messed up, so he's redoing it again. And no restrictions for the most part. I'm sure, no doesn't always mean no. I'm sure there's some things that you could break it with for sure. That's just the way tech guys are. But we really like that. Randy, check that out. And if you're not backing your stuff up, we don't do home server shows every week now, so we don't get to remind you. But if you're not backing your stuff up, chances are you're going to lose it. And I just went through an exercise with a guy at work, thousands and thousands of pictures. He handed over to a tech guy. The tech guy just formatted the drive and put Windows back on it and lost all his pictures. And fortunately, we were able to run that drive through Rakuvia and pick many of those pictures back up. He was very, very appreciative that I got most of the pictures back for him. But today I gave him a coupon for Crash Plan and said, Kurt, I'd like you to go sign up for this and do that. The other nice thing about Crash Plan, of course, with the web app or with the Android or iPhone app, you can get to individual files on the cloud as well too. So if you got something backed up and you just need access to it, you can log in through your Crash Plan account on Android or iOS and be able to get that file. All right, guys, we'll stay around. I'll hang out a little bit for the post show, but this will end at, man, we're under an hour. That's kind of crazy. We have pushed through this and got it done. Everybody likes to back up in their own way, but we made it through the show. I want to say thanks to Derek Labian for coming out and being a part of what we're doing tonight. Got a couple of things coming up for you as well, so hang tight when we here we are actually going to look at next week. I'm still lining up a guest for next week, but in 2 weeks we've got and I shut that window already. I probably shouldn't have done that, but we have, let me pull that up real quick. Sorry if you're listening in the car. I don't mean to waste your time. But, yeah, actually on the 14th of August, we have Social Bro. We've been talking about them on Ask the Podcast Coach. Very interesting social media manager for Twitter. And so if you're a Twitter fan, or even if you're not, they're doing some interesting analytics with Twitter. So August 14th, Social Bro is coming out. They're in the UK, so we're actually going to record that 7:30 in the morning, and then I'll play that show live here so you guys can catch that interview live. And then on the 21st, if you're into automation at all, home automation or a social automation or any of those kinds of things, Zapier, it's another tool I've been using for the last couple months. Zapier, Wade Foster will be on from Zapier, and then we're coming back around in August with some of the shows that we used to do with the guys. So we'll have Gordon Schmidt back, and Nathaniel Lindley's coming back. I got Kyle Wilcox on the line. We'll bring some of the guys back in and end up there back in the community mode. All right. If you're driving, you get a few extra minutes of your time back to listen to another podcast. This will end it for Home Gadget Geeks here on July 31st. I want to say happy August to you. By the time you're listening to this recorded version, it's already August, and if you made it all the way to the end of the show, you're already one of the most engaged listeners that I have, and I'll say thanks for listening. We'll be back next Thursday night. I don't have a guest yet, but we'll be back next Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live, and we'll say goodnight, everybody.